All right, for working on your final cyclone, adding your 2-ish colors of alcohol marker to your final project, please make sure you do the following. So make sure that you swatch your colors first. Make sure that you have a light and a medium rather than a light and a dark. Okay, choosing a light and a dark, it's going to be very difficult when these overlap together to create a more seamless blend. Make sure you do a really short and sweet practice of actually blending them together first. Okay, starting with the chisel of your lighter color, covering your area, bringing the darker color in, and then working that light one in from the other side. Okay, again, you can lay down your blender to prime the surface first. It's up to you. Make sure you're working on a placemat before you get started, okay? Now, this is my version of, my filled in version of my cyclone. I'm not entirely satisfied with the shading, so this was just me messing around. I'm gonna try and see if I can share with you how to do a better job. But the goal with the cyclone with the shading is I think we're gonna start in the middle in this harder area and really focus on making the center area here of the cyclone look more like a cylinder, okay? And then we can be a little bit more free with it as it goes outward, okay? So we'll talk about lights and darks, all right, and how to use those. So first things first, I'm gonna start in the center of my cyclone, and I am going to use my chisel tip, okay? Because this is a fairly large area, I want to chisel it, okay? And so what I'm going to do is start in this first ring here, and I'm going to lay down just a coat of my lighter color. Bella's in the video, FYI. Okay, so I'm laying down just kind of one coat of this, all right? And then what I'm going to do is, and you're welcome to lay down the blender first, okay, chisel the blender, that's fine. I'm not gonna do that in the interest of time. Then what I'm going to go ahead and do is where these edges here touch the cyclone, I am going to use the brush tip, okay, just in this area, and I'm going to make it a smidgy darker, right? So I'm going to press hard here and feather it out, following the curve. So my hand is mimicking the same curve here. And then I'm gonna do that same thing here. Okay, so I'm pressing hard right at the edge, and then my wrist is flicking following the curve. Okay. All right, I'm gonna do the next one here. Okay, so I'm gonna do the next one, and then we'll go up to one of these, all right? So next one, I'm going to, again, start with the chisel of the lighter color, add a layer, and when we do our shading for this, we do the shading. When it curves around here, we want to curve using the same wrist motion, and then also use the brush side of that darker marker. Okay, so I have something that looks like this, and brush tip. So I'm pressing harder with the brush here and then pulling it this way in this direction. I'm gonna do the same thing at the other side. Now let's say that you have something that looks like this and you're like, okay, Ms. O'Neill, that's not really blended. You can go back with your original color and bring that back in, particularly in that area where you want them to blend. And bringing that color back in, particularly in that area, will just kind of help it blend a little bit more seamlessly. It's looking good, good to me. All right. Now this next one is a little bit different. Okay, so this one doesn't make our infinity figure 8 symbol. It just kind of goes on the paper here. It goes off and then possibly around, okay? So what we're going to do again is use our chisel for a lighter color. You can see my marker starting to get a little tired here. That's okay. that happens, you can also lay down your blender first. You notice your marker is getting tired. In fact, I'll try and do that now. Let's see what happens. Laying down the blender, just giving it a little bit of a primed surface. Always make sure that you clean off your blender ahead of time because I've got a little bit of smudgy in there. And then I'm going to lay this down on top. So it may extend your marker a little bit further if you add that blender in. Okay. So I've got my one layer. Okay. I'm going to continue that layer in here. And what you're going to do at this point is think about where the shading will go. Okay, so the shading will go right where this stripe curves around right in here. You're going to use a little bit of your darker brush tip and wrist flick it up kind of like this. Okay, so you want to mimic that curve. I'm pressing hard here. And then I'm also going to do that in this area here. Okay, so I'm going to add the darkness here, brush flick it that way. Again, if it's not blending for you, go back and add a little bit more of your original color right in that area where they're blending. And it should soften it ever so slightly, okay? So we have that there, all right? One other thing that you can do if you so choose is you can, from the edge here, since it's going off the edge, Bella's in the video, you can add a little bit of shading as well, if you would like. And I think I'm going to do that just for kicks. I am going to, again, brush tip, flick, feathering it. Okay, so pressing harder, a little bit harder toward the edge. Okay, and right now that's not entirely blending for me, so I'll go back with my original marker, okay, and add a little bit more right here. Okay, all right, and then same thing, I'm gonna do one more stripe for us and then call it a day, just to give you an idea. So the goal here with these other stripes is it's going to be dark, closest to the main line of the cyclone, lighter, dark, lighter. It's going to be dark in here and gradually get lighter, and then dark here. So I'll do this one more main stripe just for you to get the feel of it. Because I know my marker is running out of ink, I'm going to put the blender down first. All right. Then I'm going to go ahead and add my lighter chisel of my color. Okay. And then once I get my lighter chisel of my color laid down, I'm going to add my shading, okay, with my brush tip in those two key areas. Okay, so where it curves around and hits the main part of the cyclone, I want it to be darker just in that area there. And then where it hits the other main part of the cyclone, I want it to be a little bit darker there. So brush tip, feathering it, brush tip, feathering it, and look at my, again, my wrist motion. Okay. Wherever it's not blending, go back with your original color. I'm going to use the brush tip here just to, there we go. And right in there. Okay. So I think you kind of get the idea where your pieces are coming together, where it's curving around. Okay, again, sort of like that cylinder. You're going to make it a little bit darker. Okay, so where it curves around, where it meets together, it's where it overlaps, it's going to be a little bit darker. Everywhere else a little bit lighter. Okay, if your marker is running out of ink, okay, you can use a little bit of the chisel, on the blender. Again, the chisel for the larger areas, the brush tip for the smaller, more detailed areas, particularly if you're trying to, you know, do some blending in a small specific area.